Hey, what's up, everybody? Mark Price here with Devslopes.com, and welcome to your very first Unity 3D video game. And we're not just going to build a couple of cubes and say, this is our very first video game. No, we're going to make something really cool. So what I want you to do is go ahead and download the starter project. You have to have it to do this. And also, of course, you have to have Unity installed. And then click your Unity icon here to open up the loader window. And we're currently using Unity 5.4.1 F1. Unity 5X is fine for this tutorial. And if you're using anything older than Unity 5, just upgrade. It's free and much better. So what you're going to do is click the Open button and go find the starter folder that you got in the pack that you got from the download, okay? And we're going to go ahead and click Roll a Zombie Starter. And it should look something like this. Pretty boring. See a main camera and a directional light. Okay? Now your layout may be different than my layout. I've got an inspector here, project here, and all these different things over here. What you can do is you can change these around if you want. So in our case, I'm going to click Layouts and I'm going to click Default. Okay? And it has moved some things around. So if you've never used Unity before, go ahead and do that. Go to Window, Layouts, and Default. And we'll all work on the same exact layout today. Often mine changes when I get bored, but we'll be consistent today. So we've got a scene here, okay, and we've got a game here, which is actually what you look at when the game is running. And what we're going to do, and by the way, this is a beginner tutorial, so I'm not going to cover every single thing. We're just going to get you from A to Z in this game, okay, meaning you're just going to build the game. And we're going to learn a lot more later on in other videos. So what you want to do is go down to this prefabs folder here and see that floor object. I just want you to drag it over here into the hierarchy on the left. Okay? And if I hold down Alt, okay, with this move button selected up here, I can drag around. As you can see, I can drag around with the Alt button. Okay? Now, I can press Q to pan, which is what I'm doing here. And that's the little hand up here at the top left. So I'm holding down Alt and I'm pressing Q to pan. And this looks really boring, right? You got 4 little cubes here and a big giant floor cube here. So what I want to do is give these things some life. So in your assets at the bottom left, click floor and click the circle one here. We're going to take it and drag it on to the cube floor here. That's looking a lot better. Now let's give these cubes some life. Click materials. And we're going to select green and drag it on that one. Blue, that's the second one. Red, we're going to drag it on the third one. And yellow on the fourth one. It's looking really, really nice. All we've done here is we've applied some materials. These ones have colors and the other one has a wood texture. And here's the idea of the game. We've got these cute little zombie creature balls. And we're going to use some gravity and they're going to roll forward. And every time they hit one of these, you get a point. But you also have to keep pressing them back up because if they fall off the edge, you lose the game. And so it starts getting harder because you're moving to the left through the zombies, and you're choosing which one is about to fall off. And then you press the up key, and then it goes back. And you'll see what I mean as we get closer to it. But we've just added some color to these cubes here, and we're just getting our game in the general direction of where it needs to be. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to bring our little zombie creatures into the game. So we got some zombies here, and these are pre-built, okay? Actually, where are they? Prefabs. In the prefabs folder, we got our zombies. Okay, and they're pre-built. So what I want to do is just take each one and drag it onto the hierarchy like so. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, there's our 4 little zombies all in a row. That sounds like a nursery rhyme, huh? Someone finished that. Okay, so I think we made our cubes the wrong colors here. We should have put the zombies in first, huh? Let's just change them around. The first one, I'm in here in the materials folder at the bottom left. The first one, we're just going to click this yellow material and drag it on the yellow brick. Yellow, blue, and then green on the third one, and red on the fourth one. Now holding Alt again, I can pan around here in the scene to look at these cute little zombies. Okay. So the idea again is we're going to tilt this board. The zombies are going to roll into these blocks here. You're going to get points. Okay. So what I want to do is I just want to go ahead and play the game for the very first time. Okay, so this is in play mode. Notice how I can't move it or do anything with it, okay? You got our 4 little zombies here. They're actually animated and ready to go. Of course, you're going to learn those things later on. And they look great. Okay, so there's our 4 little zombies. And let's go ahead and try and get some rotation in here or physics going. Notice how the zombies, they're just floating there in the air. They're not doing anything. And we need this to be tilted. We need the zombies to roll on it. How do we do that? Well, we're going to click our floor here, and we're going to press E, or the rotation button up here, to rotate it. And holding down Alt, I can pan around. Okay. And when I say Alt, it's Alt or Option, okay, depending on Windows or Mac. And what you can do is you can click this little red line and rotate the board. Make sure they're not touching it, just floating above like that. Okay, so now it's rotated, but again, they're not falling, right? So how do we get them to fall down? Well, we need to have physics implemented. So what we're going to do is we're going to click our 4 zombies. I'm going to hold down Shift to click all 4. I'm going to click Add Component on the right-hand side. We're going to go to Physics, and then we're going to go ahead and do Rigid Body. A rigid body is what makes objects listen to the world of physics, okay? And we do use gravity. We want gravity to apply to these guys so they fall down. So let's go ahead and see what happens if I play the game. So they fall down, but they keep falling. They're not hitting the board. And there's a reason why. The reason why is our zombie creatures here, they don't have a collider, and neither does our board. So I don't think it does. Let's see. No, our board does have a collider, and our zombies do not. Okay, so let's go ahead and click all 4 zombies again, holding Shift, and let's click Add Component. We're going to go to Physics, and we're going to go to Sphere Collider. And I'm holding down Alt and using my mouse wheel in. Notice how the sphere colliders are not where they should be in the zombies. They're too low, right? We want them to kind of be around so the zombie rolls, but it's going to look silly if it's below the zombie. So what I'm going to do is on this sphere collider, okay, I'm just going to move it up a little bit till it's right about the middle of the zombie, and I'm also going to increase the radius about right there, which is 0.56, and the Y is 0.56. So now they're nice and round. And do you think that they're going to hit the board and roll? Let's see. Ah, interesting. So now they're rolling and they're falling off. See how easy that was? Okay, so we just dragged a rigid body on these guys, put a collider on, made sure they're using gravity, and they're now hitting the board, which is exactly what we want to do. Awesome. So the next thing we want to do is we want to be able to swap between the zombies by using the left or the right keys. Okay, we want to be able to say, hey, which zombie is currently selected? That way, when you press the up key, that's the zombie that goes flying backwards. So we're going to have to write our very first script in Unity. And if you don't understand programming, that's okay. You're going to learn these things as time goes on. And it's going to be fairly straightforward for this game anyway. So first things first is create a new C# script. So we're going to right-click Assets and go to Create C# Script. And we're going to call this Game Manager. It's going to be a script that runs our entire game. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag this script manager over onto our main camera. In Unity, unlike any other type of game engine, you actually take your physical script images there that you can see in your project, and you can drag them onto objects, and it applies to the object, which is pretty darn cool. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're just going to double click this file here to open it. So what you're going to do is you're going to open this file by going to Assets, Open C# Project. And it's going to go ahead and load MonoDevelop over here. You can expand it, and now you see your GameManager.cs file. I'm going to zoom in here, holding down Alt or Option and then the scroll wheel here. You're going to see a start function and an update function. The start function is called whenever the game starts or whenever this object comes to life, the object that the script is attached to. And the update function is called repeatedly over and over and over X amount of times per second, like 60 frames per second, something like that. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to use the left and right keys to swap between zombies, meaning you have a zombie that's selected, one of the 4, and it gets bigger. That way it shows you that it's selected. And if it's selected, you can press the up key, and then that zombie will move forward. So how do we do that? Well, let's write some code. We're going to say public game object selected zombie. And we're going to do one more thing. We're going to use a C# list. So I need to import or use import a collection. So we're going to say using Unity Engine, or not Unity Engine, system dot collections dot generic. This is the library that lets us use a list. And what we're going to do is we're going to say public list. Okay, and then the less than sign, we're going to say game object, greater than sign, and we're going to say zombies. Okay, and again, if you don't understand what's going on, that's completely fine. We're just building a game here and having fun and showing you the world of game development. So what's really interesting is I made these public using the public keyword. And if I save my file and go back to Unity, okay, if I click the main camera where I drag that script onto, those things are available to me over here on the inspector, the selected zombie, and the list of zombies, how many zombies I have. So I'm going to put a 4 in there because I know I have 4 zombies. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the zombies over to these slots. And so the first one is the yellow one. So make sure the main camera is selected, and then just drag the yellow zombie into element 0, and then blue into element 1, and then green into element 2, and then red into element 3. Okay, and lists or arrays in programming always start at 0, which is why it's 0, 1, 2, and 3. And the selected zombie, we'll just make that to start off with our yellow zombie. That'll be the one that we start off with. Okay, so what we want to have happen is if the zombie's selected, we want it to be bigger. So we need a starting size, which is the scale here. Okay, so if I click this zombie, his scale is 1, 1, and 1. And so that's the default size. So what I really want to do is I want to press the R key on this zombie, holding down Alt to rotate, and just make him bigger, like a lot bigger, like 1.4. That lets us know that he's selected. Command Z to undo that. And now what I can do is back in my code, now that I know 1.4 is the number, I can do something really cool. I can say public, it's called a vector3, X, Y, and Z position is in vector 3, okay, 3 points in space, if you remember some high school math. Vector 3, we're going to say selected size, and public vector 3 default size. Save the file, come back to the code, and click the main camera. And what I can do is the selected size, remember it was 1.4, press tab 1.4, press tab 1.4. That's the scale. We want it to be larger. And the default size is 1, tab 1, tab 1. So that's going to set the size of the zombies. Okay. Now if I go back to my code, okay, we can actually we can select our zombie to make it bigger. Okay. And so what's going to happen is whenever we press an arrow key, it's going to select a zombie. And so we also need to make sure the size is properly set when the game starts as well too. What we're going to do is we're going to create a function, void. Don't worry about what the word void means. You'll learn about that soon. But basically it means it's not returning anything. This function isn't. We're going to call select zombie. Okay. And we're going to pass in the zombie that's being selected. So we're going to say it's of type game object. And we're going to call this one the new zombie. Okay, so we're creating a function where we pass in the zombie that we want to show that's selected. So which function would be a good function to start off with making our zombie a bigger size? If you said the start function, that is exactly right. So what I'm going to do here is in the start function, I'm going to call the select zombie function. And I'm going to pass in the selected zombie. Okay, the one that's up here. And then over here, we just want to change the size of the zombie. And this is fairly easy. We say new zombie, okay, dot transform dot local scale equals, and we're going to say the selected size. Okay, so we're going to select a zombie. It's this new zombie here, and we're going to set it to the bigger size on the start. And you do that using newzombie.transform.localScale. Transform is a Unity 3D component that's like position and scale, and then local scale just means the scale of the model, the 3D model, and then we set a size on it, which was 1.4, right? So I save this, go back to my game, and the yellow one should be bigger, which it is. Awesome. So we know that the code's working. You just wrote your very first script, and it's definitely working. So congratulations there. Okay, so what else, though? We also need to be able to select between zombies using the arrow keys. If I press left, it needs to go back to the red zombie, then the green, then the blue. If I press right, it goes blue, green, red, and back to the yellow. It needs to be interchangeable. So we need to write code for that. So let's go back to our script, and let's actually write the code that we need to run this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a function here called void. Well, let's do the input first, actually. Let's go over here in the update function and detect whenever there's key presses. Okay, so that's as simple as saying if input.getKeyDown, we're going to say left to get the left key. We're going to end that there. And then we're also going to say if input.getKeyDown right, put my curly braces. We'll do one more. If, because we're also going to need to get the up button, right? So if input.getKeyDown, we're going to say up. Then we're going to do 3 different things here based on what key is pressed. Okay, so let's handle the left one first. So another function, void get zombie left, curly braces there. And what we're going to do is we're going to see, remember how a list or an array starts at 0? So if we're at the very first one, if we're at the yellow one, it means we're in slot number 0. And so if we go to the left, it means we need to go to which slot? 0, 1, 2, 3. So if we go from the, if we press the left and the yellow guy's selected, we need to move over to slot number 3. Otherwise, if we press the right key, right, it would go +1, +2. But if it's the final slot, 3, and we press the right key, we need to go back to 0. So we need to write code to support that so it can loop, right? So I think we need to keep track of what position the current zombie is. So we can do that easily up here as well too. We can make this one private because we don't need Unity to see it. And we can say private int, and we're going to call this selected zombie position. We'll start it off at 0. And then what we can do is over here in get zombie left, okay, we can say if selected zombie position equals 0, it's a double equal sign there, okay? If it's equal to 0, what do we want to do? Well, we want to select the appropriate zombie. So we want to say select zombie, and this is going to be the third one, right? Because we're from the first slot, and we go to the left, we need to go to the third one, or the fourth element, or number 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. So we're going to say select zombie, and we have a list up here called zombies, right? And so to get an item out of it by its index, we're going to say zombies 3, like so. So we're going to select zombie number 3, of which of course is the fourth one because we start at 0. So if we're at position 0, we're going to loop back to the end. That makes sense. Else, what we're going to do is we're going to say select zombie, and then we're going to say, in fact, let's break this out into 2 lines here. Let's say game object new zombie equals selected zombie position, or sorry, zombies. There we go. And then we're going to put a square bracket here, just like we did over here, to get the item out of the array or out of the list. And we're going to say selected zombie position, okay, -1. And if that's confusing to you, what we're doing here is we're grabbing, if we're not at the very first element and we press left, it means all we have to do is take away 1. So if I was right here, okay, currently had blue selected, and I pressed left, I know blue is 0, 1, so I would do 1 minus 1, which is 0. It gives me that one. Same thing with the green. This is 0, 1, 2. And so to get 1 less, I would say this current position minus 1 to give me this. Of course, if we have the special case, which is we're over here, then we don't subtract 1. We go all the way back onto the right-hand side. And that's what this code's doing here. And I find it helpful if I visualize it just like that sometimes until I get it if you don't understand what's going on. So what we've done here is we've just grabbed one of the zombies out of that list and we're storing it here in this variable. And you'll learn about those as well if you don't know how to, if you've never programmed before. So there's our new zombie. And what we're going to do is we're going to select that zombie now, calling the select zombie function. And we're going to pass in the new zombie. Wonderful. Then over here, if the get key down function is called, we just say get zombie left, like so. Make sure you put the parentheses and the semicolon after it. Okay, now we need to create the other function for going to the right. Get zombie right. And it's going to be similar, but just in the reverse, right? So if selected zombie position, we need to handle the special case first, equals 3. So if it's the very last one, right? So if we're 0, 1, 2, 3, if we're on the red one and we press right, we need to go back to 0. Okay? So if the selected zombie position equals 3, then we need to select zombie, okay? And we're going to say zombies 0, like so. We're going to select the first one. Else, okay, then it's the opposite of the other one, right? Select zombie. And this time, I'm not going to separate those two into 2 code lines. We're going to do it all in one, just to show you a different way of doing it. We're going to say zombies, selected zombie position, plus 1, like so. And there we have it. And then over here on the get key down right, we're going to say get zombie right. So to follow the chain of events, if someone presses the left key here, it's going to call this left function, which selects the zombie, which changes its size. If someone presses the right key, it's going to call the right key, this get zombie right function, and it's going to pass in that zombie and then change its size. Okay, and if all of this is super confusing, don't worry, you can watch this video again and you're going to learn more later. So with that saved, click the play button, and if I press my keys, notice how they're changing. Okay, although one didn't change on us. I don't know if you noticed that here. If I press right, okay, so we have some bugs, and also we forgot to set our zombies back to their normal size after they were no longer selected. Okay, and this is what's called prototyping or rapid prototyping or iterating. You build something out, you test it, you see what's wrong with it, you go back and you revise and you do it again. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to open up the code. So what we haven't done yet is we haven't selected a new zombie, okay? Meaning we haven't set the new zombie, okay? It's still holding a reference up here to the old zombie, which is not right. So what we want to do, okay, is we want to, in this code here, when we're passing in a new zombie, all right, we want to pass in the new zombie that was selected. So we're going to go ahead and say selected zombie equals new zombie. But before that, don't you think we should change it back to size? So even before that line of code, we can say selected zombie, all right, dot transform dot local scale equals, and we're going to say default size this time, right? So what we do is we take the old zombie, even though it says selected zombie, it's about to be changed, right? Because we're selecting a new zombie. So we take the old one, put it back to size, and then we reset it to the new zombie, and then we change the new zombie to the bigger size, which is how it's supposed to be. Okay? And this is great. But one of the problems that we have is none of our indexes are being changed. Okay? If you look at this here, selected zombie position plus 1, okay? We're never changing selected zombie position to reflect the current zombie that's being selected. So we need to fix that too. So all we need to do here is just set it. So what we can do is right here, we can say selected zombie position equals 3. So the same thing that you're setting it to here, right? And then this one, selected zombie position equals selected zombie position minus 1, the exact same thing you're doing here, right? And then we'll do the same thing here as well too. Selected zombie position equals 0, to reflect the new zombie we're selecting. And otherwise, selected zombie position equals selected zombie position plus 1. Okay. The error we need to clean up here is actually, now that we've increased the zombie position, we don't need it here in our arrays anymore. So we've basically changed it here, and then we're grabbing that from right here in our zombie positions. So we just refactored our code a little bit, and I think this is a better solution. So let's go ahead and play it and see. Right, left, left, left. This is looking great. Okay, so notice how if I go to the left, it goes to red. If I go to the right, it goes back to yellow. Our code is definitely working. And again, just to recap our code, okay, if you press the left key, this is what we do. We see if it's in the very first slot. If it is, we set the new zombie position to 3, and then we grab that zombie. Similarly here, we if it's not in that first position, then all we're going to do is subtract it by 1 and select that zombie out of the list. And then we're going to select it down here. So this is all working great. Our zombies are moving from left to right. But what we also want to do is when you press the up key, we want that zombie to move up. Okay, we want to push it up. So how do we do that? Well, we can do that by applying force to an object. So what I want to do is create a new function here, void push up. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab the rigid body component off of it and add some force to it. Some simple code here. I'm just going to say rigid body. We'll call it RB, give it a name. And we're going to say selected zombie. This is when the up key is pressed, right? Dot get component, rigid body, parentheses like so. And what I'm doing here is when I say get component, I'm grabbing the component off of the zombie, this rigid body right here. I'm grabbing that script so I can work with it, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say rb.add force. We're going to add some force. I'm going to say 0 to the X position, 0 to the Y position, but 10 to the Z position. And we're going to say force mode dot impulse. We kind of want it to be like an impulse, right? Like you're punching something or hitting it up. And what this is doing here, this 0, 0, and 10, we don't want it to move to the left or the right. We want it to move back, right? Which is the blue one right here. That's the Z position, okay? We want to add force to the Z position. So that's what we're doing here when we press the up key, adding some force to it. So let's go ahead here in the up key and just call that function. So we go up here to the key up and say push up. Push up. And then we're going to go ahead and click play. And when I press up on the selected zombie, it adds some force. Pretty cool, huh? I like it. They're gone. That's really awesome. Now, I don't want all the zombies falling at the same time. Look at them. They're all kind of just falling at the exact same time, which, I don't know. It's not very creative, is it? So I'm going to hold down Alt here in the scene, and what we're going to do is just maybe make these different heights when we start off for one. So we're going to say the blue zombie starts off up here, the green zombie starts off up here, and the red zombie starts off up here. Okay? And then also, we can play with a little property on each one of these. So if you click the zombie, over here in the rigid body, you notice they have drag. And drag is like the resistance, you know, like if you were dropping a piece of paper, because it's so flat, it would drag as it's floating down. And so we're going to add some angular drag. So it's the drag of its spinning, okay? And so the more drag you have, the slower the object's going to go. So let's increase the drag of the red one just a little bit. And the green one a little bit more. And we'll leave the blue one as normal, and we'll actually decrease all the drag off of the yellow one. Now what's going to happen is they're all going to start at different speeds and make the game a little more challenging, a little more variance. So they fall. There we go. Okay, they're not all coming down at the same time. Let's try it again. Dink, dink, dink. See how they're all slightly different, but it's not quite enough. I'm going to add a lot more drag on the red one here. Okay. And also what I'm going to do is move them back a little bit too, just for fun. Okay. this one back, and this one back, just to give it a few more variances. And I'm going to click play, and here they go. Oh yeah, look at that. They're falling all at different speeds. I like it a lot. And now it's getting a little bit crazy because I got to keep moving back and forth to keep these zombies from falling. All right, pretty cool. Great. So the next thing I want to do is actually when they hit these blocks here, we just want to know when they hit it so we can increase the score. But the problem is we don't have a score to increase yet. So let's do that now. Let's create our very first user interface for this game. Okay, we're going to go to, on this screen right here in the hierarchy, right click and go to UI and click text. Okay, and it's going to create this big, huge block. You're probably thinking, what's going on here? But let's look at our game scene here. Okay, what's going to happen is that text is going to overlay on our game scene. All right, and you can't see it right now because it's so gray right here and small. So what we're going to do is we're going to change it here. We're going to put some pretend numbers in this text. I have text selected, and we're going to say scores 100. And then we're going to probably want to increase the font size by a lot, and increase the width by a lot, and increase the height by a lot. And there you can start seeing it pop up, okay, like so. And that font size is a little too big, so let's put it right about there. And then I'm going to move the Y position up here just by clicking and dragging. This is what I've been doing, is clicking and dragging. Okay, and then I'm going to move it over to the left by clicking and dragging. And there we go. The only thing I want to change is I want to make this color white. I just don't like that color there. And then what I want to do is I want to change the skybox because that's just a boring color. So let's go ahead into our project down here and click your skybox folder. See that purple thing right there? Just drag it onto the background. Actually, we need to click scene first and then drag it on to the background. Now it's looking pretty cool. If we go to the game, we can see the score a lot better, and our game is starting to come to life. So again, we need to change the score every time an object is hit. So first things first is we're going to go into our main script, our game manager, okay? And we're going to create another public variable. And it's going to be called text, but we don't have the Unity imports for text yet, so we need to import that at the very, very top. And you can do that by saying using Unity engine.ui. And now right here we can say public text, and we're just going to call it score. Okay, and on the start, we also need to keep track of score as well too. So let's say private int. We'll call this one score text actually, and we're just going to call this one the score, and we'll start it off at 0. So down here in the start, when the game first starts, we want the text to say score and then show the actual score. So we can do that by saying score text dot text equals, and then we'll type the word score with a colon and a space, and we'll say plus score. So this is going to take this number here and turn it into a word or a string, and then it's going to print it to the screen whenever it starts. Now we also need a function to add score every time one of those blocks is pushed. So we're going to say public void. We'll need this public for later because our tiles will need to access it. Public void add point. And this is going to say score equals score plus 1. So every time a block is hit, we add 1 to the score, and then we need to change the text. So score text dot text, we'll do something similar, equals score plus score, the same thing as we did before. Okay, this is looking great. And so that's how we'll add the score, but we don't have any score being calculated because we don't know when the zombies are hitting the tiles. So let's go look at our tiles here, these cubes. Okay, well, these cubes don't have any type of box collider on it, so we need to add those now. So select all the cubes holding shift, and what we're going to do is click add component, physics, box collider, and it's going to add colliders to all of these. And then what we want to do is we want to turn on trigger. Okay, we don't want our zombies to hit them and then be bounce off of them like real physics. We just want them to roll right through, because the idea of the game is you hit it and then you got to quickly move your zombie back up. Okay, so that's what we want to do. And now we also are going to need another script. Okay, so I'm going to right click my assets folder and create a brand new C# script, and we're going to call this tile, like one of the tiles on the floor. Okay, and Let's go ahead and you can resync your project by going to Open C# project, like so. Okay, and then if you expand it, you'll now see your tile, or you could have double clicked the script and it would have opened it for you. So here's our tile, and right now there's nothing interesting going on in this, right? So what we want to do is we want to detect whenever a zombie hits a tile, and we can do that using a special function. Because we marked them as triggers, we can say void on trigger enter collider other, and this is the other object that's being passed in that's hitting it, like in our case the zombie. But we don't need that object, we just need to know when it hits so we can give some points. And so what we're going to do is we need to get a reference to the game manager so we can call that add points function. So we're going to say public game manager, and we'll just call it game manager with a lowercase g like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to say game manager dot add point. That function is right there waiting for us. Pretty awesome. And then what we need to do is select these cubes. Make sure you save that script file. Select those cubes and just drag this script over here on the right hand side to the add component. And then with all of these still selected, grab your main camera and drag it over here onto the game manager. And then it's going to take the script that we put on game manager on the main camera, and it's going to have a reference to it right here, so we can call the add score function, which I think is pretty awesome. So let's see if it actually works. Score should be at 0, and actually it's not working. We forgot to drag the score on the main camera. Click main camera, scroll down, and sure enough, we didn't drag the score text onto the slot like we were supposed to. Oops, let's go back to our main camera. There it is. Okay, perfect. Now let's run it. Score is 0. So when the yellow hits, we should see 4 points once they go through. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Woohoo! So the logic for our game's all done. But I think we need a little more character to the game. So let's just do a little bit of music. A little bit of music. You know, like in that movie, like White Chicks, you know, he's like in the car and he's like, how about a little bit of music? And he like, puts on that Alanis Morissette song, and then Terry Crews starts jamming out and singing it. Anyway, go see it. It's a funny movie. Main camera, click that. And notice that there's an audio listener on it. Well, an audio listener is like your ears in the game, like what's listening to the sound. And sounds can play from audio sources. So let's also add an audio source. Add component on the camera, audio source. Awesome. And we've got some game music right here. Take that game music and just drag it in to the audio clip slot. Make sure play on awake is going, and make sure loop is going. And then when you play it, it works, and there's a lot more character to it. And one last thing is when they hit these objects here, I kind of want them to beep. How do we do that? Well, let's go back to our code of our tile, and let's just do that real quick. We're going to have to get another audio source, and we're also going to need an audio clip. So we're going to say public audio clip. That's the song or the sound effect we're going to put in there. We'll just call it hit. And then we're going to say audio source. And in this case, we don't need to make it public. We're just going to get the component. So what we're going to do is here in the start function, we're going to say source equals get component, and it's going to find the audio source that's on this tile, which we haven't added yet, but we will. Okay, and then down here when we add a point, we're going to say source.play one shot, just play it one time, and we're going to say play the hit sound. So we save it. Let's go back to our code. Click all 4 of these tiles, click add component, audio source, and this time drag the beep sound onto it. Do not put the play on awake because we don't want it to start right when the game starts. And then one more thing we need to do is we need to actually drag the audio. Oops, this is wrong. I put it in the wrong slot. The beep needs to go over here, and then I'm going to select this one and say none. There we go. So the beep is right there, and this all looks great. We put the audio clip on it. So now if I play it, okay, so we've got a real game here. And actually, this game can get quite a bit challenging if you're moving around, you know, and you're like, okay, I need to get the point, but I need to move up, but I don't want to hit too far or they go flying off. So it starts to get a little bit crazy. And so you actually have a game here where you can adjust the rules and the gameplay, and things are looking really, really cool. Some other things you could do if you wanted is you could click your main camera here, okay, and you could adjust it around to get different angles or views if you didn't like this view, or if you wanted it, let's say a little bit, I'm holding down Alt to rotate. If you wanted it like pointing a little bit higher, you know, you could do something like this, okay, or if you wanted it lower, you could do something like that. If you wanted these guys to move differently, you could click one of their objects here, the green zombie or blue zombie, and you can change the angular drag, okay? You could also, in your script, you could increase the force when one of these guys is hit, okay? This 10, we could put it to a higher number. Anything we wanted to do. In fact, you can make it a little more, you can make it a lot more interesting. I'll let you play around with it. But we've got a fully functional game here. You can press it up. Oh no, I want these guys slower. I need to get more points. And the idea is to get as many points as you can before you lose all of your characters without accidentally knocking them down. Or you could just fling them off just for fun. You could, of course, put sound effects and stuff on there as well. So you've learned a lot. This was your very first Unity game. You did some scripting. You learned how to drag materials onto the screen. You learned how to write some code with public variables that you can drag and drop in the interface. You learned how to play with some sounds, how to put a skybox on. You've done a lot of things, and if you're completely confused with the coding and it's like overwhelming, don't worry. It was meant to be. This is game development, and it just takes some time. But you're going to go... I'm actually going to cover in much more detail in all the other videos, every single thing that we've done here, and you're going to learn everything. So if you're an absolute beginner, you're going to get the deepest explanation of all these things. So by the time you're done, you're going to understand everything. But this was just a small intro, really cool stuff. This is Mark Price at devslopes.com. I'll see you in class.